Gasper, why do we play that quote from Jerod Mayo?
Because I think it just is indicative of the idea that people might have to wait a little bit longer than they want to before they declare whether he's cut out for this job or not, or whether he's capable of doing it. And that's not just about improved personnel. It's about his own improvement as a coach. And I think the first step to solving any problem is recognizing that you have a problem. And I thought today he was pretty self-aware in his media briefing, admitting that there are some mistakes he's made this year. There are some things that maybe he'd like to study or evaluate so that he feels he would either do differently or feels more comfortable about the decision he made when it comes to situational football. So I just kind of feel like every week there's a rush to anoint that he's not the guy, that he's not capable, that he's the reason they're losing these games, which, depends on the game. But in some of those games, I find that even idea to be expressed completely laughable. But I just feel like overall, let's take a beat here and evaluate the coach. Yes, on a weekly basis. I get that. That's part of what happens in the NFL. That's part of talking about a team and covering a team. But I would say don't write him off completely and say, well, he can't do it. Because here's the one thing we did know, guys, right? Before this year even started, we knew the Patriots, there was going to be a coaching downgrade. Like, it was not realistic to expect Jerod Mayo to coach at the level that Bill Belichick has coached at throughout the course of his career immediately. That wasn't very fair. Even last year, the primary problem for the Patriots wasn't coaching with Bill. There were still some mistakes and some stuff that wasn't great, but it was the personnel.
Which is true. I mean, I don't think... Bedard has been the strongest of anyone to blame the coaches. But I don't think even if he had to order it, would he say coaching's a bigger problem than personnel? I mean, who would do that?
I don't think anyone would do that. I think personnel is the biggest problem.
Issue.
But that doesn't mean that the coaching isn't.
What I think Greg's point is, but what my point would be is, what's the biggest reason they're 2-7 versus 3-6 or 4-5? Okay? So I believe they have enough talent to have a couple more wins, 1 or 2 more wins, or to be better on offense or defense than they've been. And I think, Chris, that gap between what they could be and what they are is where I bring in the coaching.
Yeah, so my question on that, I guess, is this, and maybe I'm misreading it, is because I feel like a lot of times when people say the coaching, they're not talking about the entire staff. They put it all on Mayo, and we're still sort of operating under this Belichick construct of, well, the head coach should be able to fix any element of the team. And look, you cover the Packers, or you're a fan of the Packers, even when they were winning and Mike McCarthy was there, he didn't have jack to do with the defense. And Andy Reid's not drawing up defenses in Kansas City. So for me, what I hear a lot of, even on the offensive line stuff, it's a lot of, well, Mayo should do this, Mayo should do that. Yeah, when Bill was here, Bill was a unique talent who could sort of jump in and coach any position and try and help fix any position. But the majority of coaches the overwhelming majority of coaches in the NFL, like, they can't do that. So where maybe I'm misreading it, or you tell me, you want to criticize the coaching staff and Mayo, by the way, fine. But I feel like it sort of all tends to flow back to the head coach, when at times I look at it and say, well, hold on. Shouldn't some of this blame go to Elliott Wolf, who basically helped him put this coaching staff together and looks like he can't evaluate personnel on two fronts, coaches and players? Why does it always all trace back to Mayo on things that really, I think most head coaches in the NFL, you look at it and say, well, they don't really have anything to do with that on a granular basis.
I don't. I think they've made mistakes across the board on the entire transition and the entire staffing, front office, personnel, coaching. I think they've cut corners. I think they've made bad decisions, hasty decisions made for the wrong reasons, and it's all added up to it all not being good enough. I don't blame Mayo necessarily for the offense. I don't at all. I thought Van Pelt was a horrible hire.
So, Chris, is there any... I mean, I'm not asking you to name names per se, but is there any one in particular that you're talking about? Because we talk a lot about Van Pelt. We talk a lot about Wolf. We talk a lot about Kraft. I mean, so I don't feel like it's all going on Mayo, but he is the head coach, Chris, right? So just by the nature of the title, I think there's going to be a certain amount that he takes more than others.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Mazz. That's completely fair. And look, criticize him for the wind. I mean, that was awful. The wind against Tennessee. I think that's fair. But again, when we get into some of these things like changing offensive line combinations in the middle of a game, does he have something to do with that? Maybe he does, but I mean, he expressed his frustration today about where they're at on the offensive line. I mean, some of that is you kind of have to trust your coaches. I don't know. Scott Peters is not an experienced offensive line coach in terms of being in the head job. He's a guy that has a unique way of teaching. He has the strike system. I don't know if that's something that everybody down there is fully comprehending or on board with from a player personnel standpoint among the players. And so, again, I just think that some of this to me, seems to, I get that he's the head coach, but that doesn't mean that he can fix everything. And by the way, even when Bill was here, I think that we sort of got this idea, this myth, that he could just be Mr. Fix-It and fix any sort of element of a team. And it looked that way, and he was excellent at fixing teams on the fly. His plan C was better than most people's plan A, but a lot of the years he was doing that, not only did he have Brady, but he had excellent assistant coaches, whether it was Romeo Crennel or Charlie Weiss or Brad Seeley or Dante Scarnecchia or Josh McDaniels or Eric Mangini or Brian Flores. The list goes on and on and on. And so it wasn't just him fixing these things. And I still think people around here, again, I could be wrong, I still think people around here think that any good head coach, a really good head coach, should be able to fix any element of the team and overcome any element of personnel deficiency. And I think that's just wrong. That's just not it's just not true.
How do you think this ties into the two-point conversion stuff and the decision Mayo made last week or even last night with Zach Taylor? How do you wrap that all in?
I thought Zach Taylor made the right decision last night, and he didn't get the right outcome. I felt like Jerod Mayo made the right decision on Sunday and didn't get the right outcome. I mean, it wasn't just Drake May who'd been running around for 12 seconds. It was all your receivers and your best offensive player, Ramondre Stevenson. So then from that point, you're going to try and get the two-point conversion. I think that would have been a little risky. I think he made the right decision. Tennessee only got a field goal. They got the ball back in overtime. If they march down, they can tie it with a field goal. You probably end up with a tie at that point, or you score a touchdown and you win the game. So I thought that was absolutely the right decision by Mayo. I thought it was absolutely the right decision by Zach Taylor because Cincinnati couldn't stop Lamar Jackson. But again, you can make the right decision and get the wrong outcome. I thought both coaches made the right decision but got the wrong outcome.
Mayo was also very adamant today, Chris, that the call was 100% his, and those calls are 100% his. Do you think he's sports fibbing there, or do you think it is 100% his?
I think the final call is 100% his, but in terms of the idea that there's not a protocol set up for certain information that he must take into account or is asked to take into account, whether that's from Evan Rothstein or somebody else, I think there absolutely is a bunch of information, some of it that might not be stuff that he would want to consider that they ask him to consider before he makes the decision.
Of course. The nerd's in his ear.
Definitely. Yeah. Now, look, again, in this case, though, it might be very easy for him to say it's my call ultimately because the nerds may very well have said to him it's 50-50. Right? Like, in which case, it's just really a gut call on your part at this point. The data says 48% versus 52, and, you can err on the 2% if you want, but at the end of the day, if it's a 50-50 play, I mean, I thought he made the wrong call in Tennessee. I'd have gone for it. I don't think the Patriots...
Why? I'm just curious, but why? Other than the outcome, why? What at that moment led you to... I mean, they struggled to get... It took a miracle to get the ball in the end zone once from the 5. So from the 2.5, why would you feel more confident that they could get it in?
Because I wasn't confident they were going to be able to get down there again, and I don't think their defense is very good. They're on the road in the kid's first career game, a road game, and you have a chance to do it in one play, do it. And the thing about the rest, Chris, or the fact that they were running around for 12 seconds, I'm not telling you it's irrelevant, but I am telling you the other team was running around for 12 seconds too. I mean, that can go both ways. So both teams had to play on the previous play. It's not as if one of them played and one of them didn't. So I'd have gone for it. And I acknowledge you can kick if you want. Kick off, I mean. Kick the extra point and then go to overtime. You can certainly do it that way. I just don't have enough faith in the Patriots offense to be able to generate anything and get down there again.
Yeah, so I guess my answer to that would be, again, how can you have no faith in them to get down there again, but you're going to put more than 49% or or more than 50% faith that they're going to convert the play. Like, that just doesn't compute to me. And at the end, they didn't have to get down there again. They just had to get into field goal range. You tie the game. Look, no one likes ties. But I'm saying you tie the game. At that point, you didn't need to get down there again to ultimately prevent losing the game. I can see it both sides. I'm not saying what you're saying is ridiculous. It's not ridiculous, Mazz. I see what you're saying. I just look at it and think, in my mind, they made the right decision there based on what the play was and based on what the capability of their offense is. Now, look, everybody likes it when it's aggressive, and you're right. It's one play to win the game, and that feels good. And a lot of people say, hey, you give me one play to win the game before the game, I'll take it. I understand it. I just personally, based on the way that series went down there, didn't have a lot of faith in them converting that 2-point conversion.
If you like that clip, check out more videos from Felger and Mazz here. For more Patriots analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. And for all the latest from the Sports Hub, download the app at 985thesportshub.com.